Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about one of the most terrifying silent killers, stroke. According to the World Health Organization, over 15 million people suffer a stroke each year worldwide. In the United States alone, nearly 800,000 cases occur annually. But what's truly alarming isn't the number. It's the fact that many of these strokes could have been prevented if people had recognized the early warning signs their bodies were sending. No loud alarms, no clear warnings, just subtle signals. Easy to ignore, but potentially life-saving. Don't take your eyes off this video, because noticing just one early sign might save you or a loved one from paralysis, memory loss, or worse. This isn't a scare tactic. This is life-saving information. Let's get started.
He was 72, a retired postman from Minnesota, walked every day, ate oatmeal with blueberries each morning, didn't smoke, barely drank, kept up with his doctor's visits. But one morning while fixing a cup of tea, his left hand just stopped moving. The cup fell to the floor and shattered. And as he turned toward the sound, he realized he couldn't feel the left side of his face. He hadn't collapsed. There was no drama, no slurred speech. Just a quiet numbness, like the lights dimmed in part of his body without warning. This man's story isn't rare. It's happening to more older adults than we'd like to believe. It's something I call the ghost thief of aging, a silent stroke. No headache, no chest pain, no collapse. Just subtle changes, a little more clumsiness, a little more forgetfulness, or a strange weakness in the hand that's easy to write off. But inside your brain, something serious may already be happening. A silent stroke, or what some neurologists call a subclinical infarct, damages parts of your brain without any obvious signs. You don't even realize it happened until months later your memory slips a little faster, your balance falters a little more than usual, or your confidence starts to shrink in your own body. You might notice you're withdrawing from social events, losing your appetite, feeling more confused after a nap, or struggling to find the right words mid-sentence. And here's the part that shocks most people. The damage is cumulative. You might be walking around with several of these tiny strokes and not know until it's too late. One day you just feel slower, not yourself. And everyone blames it on just getting older. But what if I told you that something as simple as the wrong combination of vitamins or the absence of a few specific ones could quietly increase your risk? This isn't about whether you're taking vitamins or not. It's about which ones you're taking and how they interact. There's a combination one that's often misunderstood or overlooked. People assume because it's over-the-counter it's safe. But research shows it may quietly contribute to a cascade of blood vessel damage, particularly in older adults. I read a publication from the National Institutes of Health that stayed with me for weeks. It highlighted a connection between high-dose folic acid, commonly found in multivitamins, and increased risk of cognitive decline in older adults if vitamin B12 levels are low. This interaction doesn't scream, it whispers. It's like having a car with too much fuel and not enough oil it might run, but the engine starts to burn from the inside out. In my own practice, I once met a woman named Elaine, 69 years old, spirited the kind, who still made lemon pies from scratch and sang in her church choir every Sunday. But over the course of a year, her husband said she became forgetful. Not drastically, just little things. Names, phone numbers, the punchline of her favorite joke. He thought it was age. But I ran a few tests. Her brain MRI showed signs of silent infarct, small, scattered areas of damaged brain tissue. She was devastated. But what caught me off guard was her blood work. Her folate levels were too high, while her B12 was dangerously low. She had been taking a multivitamin daily for over a decade, assuming it was protecting her. But in her case, that very pill had been slowly harming her. Without enough B12, the folic acid built up, masking symptoms but not preventing damage. Her body had been waving silent red flags for years, but no one had noticed. There's a study out of the UK that observed over 1,000 elderly individuals and found that those with low B12 and high folate had significantly worse cognitive performance than those with balanced levels. Worse yet, they had more white matter lesions, the kind of brain changes linked to early dementia and stroke. You might be wondering, how could something so small, so seemingly harmless, cause this much damage? Think of your brain's blood vessels like delicate garden hoses. With age, they become more brittle. The wrong vitamin imbalance is like letting pressure build up in those hoses. You don't see the leaks at first, but slowly, silently, the walls begin to weaken. A little bleed here, a little blockage there, and one day your brain pays the price. I need to ask you a serious question. Have you ever checked your B12 levels, not just assumed they're fine because you eat meat or take a supplement? If you're over 60, your stomach's ability to absorb B12 from food is reduced even with a healthy diet. And certain medications like metformin or acid reducers can lower your B12 even more. And that's where you come in. You have the power to change the course of this story. It starts with awareness. It continues with intention. If you've ever felt a little more foggy, or if you've noticed a loved one acting just slightly different, slower, quieter, or more confused, don't brush it off. These may be the early signals of something deeper, something silent but not invisible. You deserve to know what's happening in your body. You deserve to age with clarity, strength, and dignity. And this channel is here to guide you through that. So before we go any further, I invite you to do one simple thing: subscribe. Leave a comment, even just a 1 if this message reached you, or 0 if you're not sure yet. I read every single one. Because this isn't just health advice. It's about keeping you strong enough to live the life you want with memory, movement, and meaning. You've heard of B12, I'm sure, that energy vitamin. The one people say helps with fatigue or memory. But sir, have you ever really understood what it does inside your body? Especially in that beautiful, complex brain of yours. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Vitamin B12 is not just about giving you energy. It's the quiet architect behind your nerve health, the unsung guardian of your brain's delicate wiring. Without it, your nervous system, that vast silent network controlling every movement, thought, and heartbeat, begins to fray. And once that fraying begins, the damage can be very, very hard to undo. When I look into the eyes of my older patients and see that distant look, that confusion they try to hide, the pauses as they search for a word, I ask them gently about their B12. It's a simple blood test, but the consequences of not knowing are enormous. One gentleman, Robert, 75, retired machinist from Indiana, came in after a fall. He said he tripped over nothing, but his daughter mentioned he had started repeating stories and sometimes forgot where he left his keys, even his car. Robert was still strong, still lively, still full of pride. But when I tested his B12, it was dangerously low. He had been taking a multivitamin, but no one had told him that after a certain age, your body stops absorbing B12 effectively from food. You need it sublingually or even through injections. By the time we caught it, Robert had already had a silent stroke he hadn't noticed, but his MRI did. You see, when B12 is low and folic acid is high, it can mask anemia but allow nerve damage to continue. That's what the NIH warned about in their studies. It's like painting over mold in your house. It looks fine, but the rot continues underneath. And then there's homocysteine. Have you heard of that, madam? It's a natural compound in your blood, but when it builds up too much, it starts to act like acid on your blood vessels. It eats away at the inner lining, making them stiff, inflamed, more prone to clots, the perfect storm for a stroke. What controls homocysteine? 3 vitamins: B6, B12, and folate. When those 3 are in balance, homocysteine stays low. But when B12 drops, especially while folic acid remains high, homocysteine starts to rise, quietly, dangerously. I once read a report from Harvard researchers that linked elevated homocysteine levels in elderly patients with nearly double the risk of stroke and dementia. That's not fear-mongering. That's biology. And yet most seniors I talk to have never had their homocysteine checked. It's not part of the regular checkup. You have to ask. You have to insist. And so I'm asking you, what's going on in your blood, not in your neighbors, not in your friends, yours? Because your memory, your balance, your peace of mind, they depend on it. Many of you tell me you feel off sometimes, like you're not yourself, that your body is slowing down faster than it should, and I hear that fear behind your words. I hear the worry that this might be the beginning of something worse. But I want to tell you, not all decline is inevitable. Some of it is preventable, even reversible. When you're low in B12, you may feel pins and needles in your hands or feet. You might forget simple things where the sugar bowl is while you walked into a room a friend's name during a conversation. You might feel unusually tired even after a full night's sleep. You might notice you're tripping more often or having trouble with buttons, handwriting, or even just keeping your balance in the shower. These aren't just quirks of aging, these are signals. Your body is wise, it always tries to speak to you, but it's up to you to listen. As a doctor, I've watched people lose years of clarity and joy because their B12 deficiency wasn't caught in time. I've also seen others reclaim energy, memory, and vitality simply by correcting it. It doesn't take much, just awareness. A few smart changes, and a refusal to accept confusion, clumsiness, or forgetfulness as normal. There's something else I want to say to you, especially if you're caring for someone else right now, a spouse, a friend, an aging parent. Please watch for these signs in them too. Sometimes they don't have the words to tell you what's wrong. Sometimes they're too proud to admit they're struggling, but you can catch it. You can save them from the path to disability. I've seen adult children bring in their parents just in time. And those parents, after a few months of the right supplementation, became sharper, brighter, more alive. Isn't that what we all want to stay ourselves? To remember who we are, what we love, and how to get home without panic in our eyes. Sir, madam, don't wait until your story becomes a cautionary tale. You can change the course of your health. You can demand to know what's going on in your blood. You can ask your doctor to test your B12, your folate, your homocysteine. And if they say it's not necessary, ask again, because this is your life. Your health is not about fear. It's about power. Quiet daily power, the kind that lets you wake up in the morning and still feel like you. When I think of the word fragile, I don't think of porcelain or glass. I think of an 83-year-old man named Walter who used to be a carpenter. His hands were thick, worn by decades of work, steady, even in old age. But I'll never forget the moment he walked into my office and said, "I just don't trust my legs anymore, Doc." He hadn't fallen. He hadn't had a stroke, at least not that anyone had noticed. But he felt it. Deep down, he knew something had shifted. And he was right. The scans showed multiple silent strokes, tiny scattered lesions on his brain that were slowly stealing his confidence, balance, and short-term memory. He hadn't felt anything when they happened. No dizziness, no blackout. Just an unshakable sense that he was becoming someone he didn't recognize. Walter had been taking a multivitamin for years, one of the expensive ones. But no one had ever told him that the form of B12 in his supplement wasn't active in his body. And he was on omeprazole, an acid-reducing medication, which made it nearly impossible for him to absorb natural B12 from food. Slowly, silently, the deficiency crept in. And while folic acid levels stayed normal, even high, his B12 fell through the cracks. That imbalance didn't just affect his nerves. It affected the lining of his brain's tiny vessels, priming them for damage. Let me explain this in a way that I hope stays with you. Your brain, especially as you age, is like a vast garden. Every thought, every movement, every memory depends on water flowing through tiny channels, your blood vessels. But as you get older, those vessels stiffen. Think of it like a hose left out in the sun for too many seasons. Now imagine those same hoses being attacked from the inside by rising levels of homocysteine, an acid that wears them down slowly. No flood, no alarm, just silent corrosion. That's exactly what happens when your B vitamins are out of sync, especially B12, B6, and folate. They are the quiet workers that keep homocysteine in check. When they're low, the acid rises. And when it rises, your vessel walls weaken. Clots form more easily. Blood doesn't flow as well to the deep parts of your brain. And what happens when those areas, the ones responsible for balance, attention, memory, stop getting oxygen? A little piece of who you are fades. I once read an article from the Mayo Clinic that said many elderly individuals with early signs of dementia actually have underlying vascular issues that went undetected for years. Not Alzheimer's, not a genetic time bomb, but something preventable, correctable, something as basic as poor circulation and vitamin imbalance. Can you imagine how many families could have had a few more good years with their loved ones? How many dinner table conversations could have stayed joyful instead of strained and awkward? I think of Walter, and I think of the thousands like him proud, independent, and quietly slipping away because no one ever told them that a simple vitamin imbalance could be deadly. Madam, have you ever noticed your handwriting changing or struggled to button a shirt that used to feel familiar in your hands? Sir, have you found yourself losing interest in things you once loved, not because of sadness, but because your thoughts feel like they're moving through mud? Those little things matter. They are not just quirks of aging, they are messages from your brain asking for help. A silent stroke doesn't always take away your ability to speak or move. Sometimes it takes away something far more subtle, your mental sharpness, your confidence, your independence. And most of the time, it doesn't come in a flash. It builds slowly through small risks that stack over time. So what can you do? Start by knowing what's inside the vitamins you take. Not all supplements are equal. Some contain folic acid in high doses without balancing B12. Others contain a form of B12 that your aging digestive system can no longer process. Look for methylcobalamin. That's the active form of B12 your nerves can actually use. If you're over 60, consider sublingual tablets, the kind that dissolve under your tongue, or ask your doctor about B12 injections. They bypass your gut and go straight into your bloodstream. And don't forget B6, it helps process homocysteine too. Just be careful with dosage. Too much B6 can cause its own nerve issues. Balance is everything. Ask for a homocysteine test. Most doctors won't do it unless you request it specifically. If yours won't listen, find someone who will. This is your brain, your story, your right to clarity and movement. One of my colleagues, Dr. Angela Kim from Seattle, once said something that stuck with me. We don't age in years, we age in vessels. Protect those, and you protect the person. She's right. Your brain isn't aging on a schedule. It's aging based on what flows through it or doesn't. I know some of this may be overwhelming. You might be thinking, is it too late for me? Let me tell you it's not. I've seen 80-year-olds who regained focus and steadiness after just 6 months of proper nutrition and targeted supplements. Not miracles, just science applied carefully and with respect. Walter. We caught it in time. His B12 was corrected, his homocysteine came down, and we created a plan for his circulation and cognitive health. He still works with his hands. Not on houses anymore, but on puzzles, birdhouses, and small woodworking projects for his grandchildren. He came back to life not all at once, but steadily, like a garden that blooms again after a long dry season. And you can too. Let me take you into the quiet kitchen of a woman named Elaine. She's 74 lives alone in rural Georgia and still kneads her own bread every Sunday morning. When she came to see me, she didn't complain of pain. She didn't look frail. In fact, she joked about still being able to carry a bag of flour better than her grandson. But she told me something that made me pause. She said, "I don't feel like I'm fully here anymore." Elaine hadn't lost her memory in the dramatic movie-like way people often imagine, but she was forgetting the little things, how to start a sentence, whether she'd fed the cat, or where she'd put the car keys. She was sleeping more, but waking up tired. She'd lost interest in her crossword puzzles. And one morning, she stepped into her garden and couldn't remember which herbs she'd grown for over a decade. We ran tests. Her blood pressure, cholesterol, heart, all surprisingly good. But her homocysteine over 17. That's high. Her B12 just barely above the cutoff. Enough to avoid anemia, but not nearly enough to nourish her nervous system. And her folate. Very high, likely from fortified foods, and a well-meaning supplement she'd picked up at the grocery store. Elaine was slowly starving her brain without knowing it. And what's worse, everything she was doing, she believed was helping her stay sharp. The fortified cereals, the multivitamin, even the so-called brain health tea. But none of it balanced her internal chemistry. It took us 6 months to get her homocysteine down to a healthy range. 6 months of weekly B12 injections measured doses of B6 and methylated folate, and a drastic cutback on synthetic folic acid. And what happened? Elaine's memory didn't just return. Her personality came back. The jokes, the laughter, the sparkle in her stories. She started organizing community bake sales again. The joy in her letters, yes, handwritten letters, was palpable. She became present. Whole. Madam, sir, this is the part I want you to remember. Your cognitive health isn't just about preventing dementia or stroke. It's about preserving you, your presence, your joy, your sense of self. It's not about becoming perfect or never forgetting a name. It's about not losing yourself in the fog that so many silently slip into. And you don't need expensive procedures or fancy therapies to begin. It starts with awareness, with checking your B12, with knowing that homocysteine is not a scary medical term. It's a number that can tell you if your brain's highways are clear or slowly being blocked. Let's talk about food for a moment because this part matters more than people realize. You may think you're getting enough B12 from meat or eggs, but after 60, your stomach produces less acid, which means your body can't absorb B12 from food as effectively. You could be eating steak every Sunday and still be deficient. You might be taking folic acid through cereal bread or vitamins thinking it's helping. But if your B12 is low, folic acid can mask the blood-related symptoms while your nerves continue to deteriorate. That's what makes the combo dangerous. That's why silent strokes happen without warning. The body hides the signs and the mind begins to fade. So what can you do today? Check your multivitamin. Does it list cyanocobalamin as the B12? That's the synthetic form. Not terrible, but not well absorbed by many older adults. You want methylcobalamin. It's more bioavailable. Your body recognizes it like a key fitting into a lock. Does your vitamin include more than 400 mcg of folic acid? That's often too much, especially if your B12 isn't optimized. Consider switching to a methylated folate, not folic acid, and lower the dose under a doctor's guidance. And yes, these are small details, but they matter more than you can imagine. Look at your medications. Are you on acid blockers like omeprazole or ranitidine? They can significantly reduce B12 absorption. Diabetic metformin does it too. Even some blood pressure medications interfere. You might be doing everything right, eating well, exercising, taking your pills, and still be missing something vital. Start small. Go to your doctor and ask for a B12 and homocysteine test. Ask about your methylation if your body can process synthetic forms of vitamins. You don't need to become a scientist, but you do need to become your own advocate. As a physician, I have the privilege of seeing miracles every day, not the dramatic kind, but the quiet victories. An older man remembering his daughter's name after 2 years of fog. A woman finally able to walk down her driveway without her cane. Not because of a cure, but because of balance. Because her body had what it needed again. Your brain doesn't want to leave you. It wants to serve you. It wants to hold your stories, your songs, your recipes, your habits, your laughter. It wants to be there when your grandchild asks, "What was it like when you were my age?" But it needs you to care for it. Not with fear, but with tenderness and wisdom. You don't need to fix everything today, but take one step. Make one phone call. Ask one question. Can we check my B12? That's it. That's where it starts. And if your doctor brushes you off, don't walk away ashamed, walk out stronger. Find someone who will listen. Because you are worth listening to. Your story is still being written. Do you remember the first time you forgot something important? Not the small things, not a misplaced remote or a forgotten birthday. I'm talking about the first time your mind went completely blank in a moment that truly mattered. Maybe you were standing in front of the fridge and couldn't remember why you opened it. Or maybe you picked up the phone, heard a familiar voice, and still had no idea who you were speaking to for the first few seconds. That pause, that flicker of confusion, it feels harmless at first. But deep down you knew. Something was shifting. I had a patient named Gloria, 81 retired school teacher, fiercely independent. She used to drive herself to my office in her little green hatchback and always had a crossword puzzle tucked under her arm. But one day she walked in looking tired. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. "I keep forgetting words," she said. Simple ones. I couldn't think of the word ladder yesterday. I called it a step stick. What's happening to me? Her lab showed something we're seeing far too often: elevated homocysteine, low normal B12, and folate levels that were surprisingly high. Gloria was diligent. She took her multivitamins, she ate spinach, she drank smoothies. But none of that mattered because, like many others, she had a methylation issue. Her body couldn't convert folic acid into the usable form her brain needed, and without enough active B12 to balance it, her neurons were slowly starving. A recent article from the National Institutes of Health described how imbalanced B vitamin intake, especially excessive folic acid, without adequate B12 can contribute to functional B12 deficiency, even when blood levels seem normal. It's one of the reasons silent strokes often go undetected. Your labs might look fine, but the damage is still being done. So we made a plan. We switched her to a methylated B complex that included methylfolate, methylcobalamin, and P5P, the active form of B6. We reduced her processed foods that were fortified with synthetic folic acid. We started gentle circulation exercises 5 minutes in the morning and evening, not cardio, just slow walking with mindful breathing. Within a month, her fog started to lift. 2 months later, she brought me a crossword puzzle she had completed in under 10 minutes. She cried in my office. And so did I. Because it's not about solving puzzles, it's about reclaiming dignity. Reclaiming your ability to live on your terms, not under the silent control of a creeping fog. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you read a page from a book and remembered it the next day? When was the last time you could walk across a room without second-guessing your steps? When did you last laugh so hard that your chest hurt and not your joints? If it's been too long, that's not aging. That's a call for nourishment. The World Health Organization has warned that by 2030, over 70% of all strokes, including silent strokes, will occur in people over 65. And nearly half of those could be prevented with proper diet, active B vitamin regulation, and early vascular care. But that statistic won't comfort you if you don't take action today. What's happening inside your body isn't just about vitamin levels on a chart. It's about blood flowing through the deep parts of your brain, the parts that control your ability to speak, to plan, to feel joy. These aren't extras. They're not bonuses. They're your identity. And here's the truth: I've seen lives transformed with simple changes, not magic pills, not overnight fixes, but daily, consistent care. Start with 5 foods that nourish your nervous system: eggs, wild salmon, spinach, lentils, and avocado. Then support them with the right supplement, not just anyone. If you're unsure, ask for help from someone who understands methylation and aging digestion. Don't rely on the bright labels. Read the fine print. You want B12 as methylcobalamin, folate as methylfolate, B6 as P5P. These are not luxury items. These are your protection. If you can take walks where your feet touch the earth. Morning sun. Simple breath work. These help your circulation, reduce inflammation, and remind your nervous system that you are alive, awake, and safe. I once had a mentor, Dr. Eli Marcus, who said, "The brain listens to every choice you make, even the ones you think don't matter. So when you choose what to eat, what to skip, what to supplement, your brain is listening. And it's either healing or weakening with every one of those decisions." I don't share these stories to frighten you. I share them because I've sat across from too many men and women who came in just a little too late. The spark had dimmed. Their words had slowed. Their stories were fading. But that doesn't have to be your story. You still have time to remember to rebuild, to rejoice. Your body is not a machine that wears out and shuts down. It is a garden that, when given sunlight, water, and care, blooms again, even after a harsh winter. So let this be your turning point. Today is not the end of the story. It is a new chapter. I want you to close your eyes for just a moment, truly take a breath, soften your shoulders, and listen to your body. Is it tired? Is it tense? Is it quiet? Or is it aching for your attention? Sometimes we forget that the body speaks to us long before anything serious goes wrong. It whispers through little slips of memory, through a heaviness in the legs, through a nap that doesn't refresh or a meal that doesn't satisfy. And the older we get, the more we are taught to brush it off. That's just old age, they say. But let me be very clear with you: what you feel is real, and more often than not, it's not just aging, it's imbalance. And many of those imbalances are reversible. I once worked with a man named Thomas, 76, retired military widower, proud father of 2. He came into my clinic with a cane, but not because of an injury. He said, "Doc, my legs just don't listen to me anymore." That phrase stuck with me. It wasn't weakness, it was disconnection. And when I asked him more questions, he also mentioned strange sensations in his fingertips, occasional dizziness, and a fog that crept in late in the afternoon. It wasn't Alzheimer's. It wasn't Parkinson's. It wasn't blood sugar either. It was homocysteine again. His level was 23. I remember this number because I checked it twice. We started the protocol immediately. B12 shots 3 times a week, methylfolate daily, P5P to support neurotransmitters. And something else I haven't mentioned yet, riboflavin, also known as vitamin B2. It's not famous, not glamorous. But in people with a common genetic variation, riboflavin helps process homocysteine out of the bloodstream. When Thomas added that, something changed faster than I expected. Within 3 weeks, he called my office. His voice was lighter. Doc, I walked to the mailbox without my cane. By week 8, he was lifting light weights at the senior center. And 6 months later, he joined a community theater group playing a supporting role in a small-town play. That man who once felt his legs had betrayed him was dancing again. Not like a teenager, of course, but like a man who knew what he had nearly lost. Sir Madam, the vitamin combo I keep referring to isn't magic. It's B12, B6, and folate the right forms in the right balance. Sometimes riboflavin, sometimes choline. These nutrients work like teammates, each playing a role in how your nervous system communicates, how your blood vessels stay clean, and how your mind stays lit from within. If this feels overwhelming, I understand. You're not a scientist, but you are a steward of your own health. You can learn this gently, slowly. You can print out this phrase and hand it to your doctor. Please test my homocysteine active B12 and methylmalonic acid. That's the trio that will tell you if your brain is at risk. And if you can't afford testing or your clinic doesn't offer it, you can still support your body. Begin with the basics. Don't rely on folic acid from processed foods. Instead, focus on dark leafy greens, lentils, and avocados. Choose B12 supplements that say methylcobalamin, not cyanocobalamin, not hydroxocobalamin. Methylcobalamin. Get moving even just 10 minutes a day. Movement increases blood flow to the brain and supports nutrient delivery. And please don't isolate yourself. Loneliness accelerates cognitive decline just as much as poor nutrition. Call a friend. Join a walking group. Read aloud to your grandchild, even over the phone. All of this keeps your brain alive. Years ago, I read a quote from Dr. Lisa Mosconi, a neuroscientist and nutrition expert. She said, "Your brain is not dying, it is starving." That line lives in my heart, because I've seen so many patients misdiagnosed, overmedicated, or simply ignored when all they needed was to nourish their inner circuitry. We don't talk about silent strokes enough. You won't feel them the way you'd feel a heart attack. There's no crushing pain, no dramatic collapse. But a part of you, a memory, a skill, a habit quietly disappears. That's why this conversation matters. You may never know the moment it happens, but you can prevent it. You have far more power than you've been told. If someone in your life, your partner, your friend, your sibling, seems a little less sharp, a little more tired, don't wait. Encourage them to get tested. Invite them to take that walk with you. Share this video. It might seem like a small act, but it could be the moment that turns their life around. Because here's the truth I want you to carry with you. Your mind isn't gone. It's just waiting for the right kind of love. And love in this case looks like B12, folate, and B6. It looks like rest, hydration, laughter, gentle movement, and being heard. So listen and speak up. For yourself. For the people you love. I know many of you may feel tired, discouraged. Some of you may have already lost a friend or spouse to dementia or stroke, and you wonder, is it already too late for me? Let me say this plainly, no, it's not. As long as you can hear this voice, as long as your breath moves through your lungs, as long as you still care, you are not too late.